I'm going to start off, Lindsay, with you, because of course this Bharti MTN deal has been in the spotlight since May this year. Commentary around this deal has been getting louder and louder to the extent that we've seen now talks underway being extended. The fact that we have seen an extension come to the fore, what does this spell in your books in terms of outcome?
I think an important distinction between this year and last year is that last year we saw talks extended only once between Bharti and MTN, and the nature of that deal really was a case of one company trying to buy out the other. So both companies have realized that this is not the strategy that they want to use. They want to find an agreement whereby each of them can benefit by sharing some of the synergies that are to be found between the two companies. Now, we've seen an extension already twice. There is some speculation that we could see another extension of the talks, and then of course the fact that Bharti has increased its offer is also, it's all a good sign, and from our side we really do expect to see a deal coming through, even though it might still require another talk extension.
Nikki, what's your view on this deal that's possibly in the pipeline here, where many have been saying that great synergies can be extrapolated?
Okay, my view is that, well, it will work better for MTN to actually go in with Bharti, because if you look at, as one of the analysts has said, that if you look at the current South African market is a bit of a saturation point, and you look at Nigeria, how they've been doing. They've been getting good margins. Iran, there's been quick growth, but there hasn't been numbers that have been coming through with average revenue per user from that area. So going into the Indian market, which is going to create them to be the third biggest mobile company in the world, and also giving them another access to another market that MTN is currently not operating in. And the fact that MTN has demonstrated itself as a good player in the markets that the West might not most of the time avoid. I think for MTN this will work beneficially, but as the shareholders are saying, most of them would like a little bit more of a sweetener into the deal, even though the deal has been increased from 7 billion to 10 billion. More still required, because I think everybody looks at MTN and say this is quite one of the assets that one will want to pay a premium for.
With that being the position we're sitting in right now, Lindsay, I mean, how are you advising your clients who are investors in MTN in this context?
I think it's very important to note that MTN is a very strong company, and even if this deal with Bharti were not to go ahead, the company would remain strong. So I think from our side, we think that it's important to sit tight, to watch the situation, and whatever the outcome is going to be, MTN is still going to have its core assets, which is a very good coverage in the African and Middle Eastern market, a very good network, and a very good value proposition for clients. It's also got good growth prospects going forward with or without the Bharti deal. So from our side, we're saying it's a good idea to hold on to those MTN shares, and then also to hedge the position and make sure that those shares are held at least for the next 6 months to a year.
Of course, minority shareholders aside, Nikki, we've got this deal pending government approval as well, in the sense of government regulating economic activity in South Africa. How likely is it that this deal is going to get the nod from government? Because essentially we're looking at a case of whether or not this deal is going to fly politically.
The thing is, we're going to have to first of all look at the relations between India and South Africa. We know that Tata has been here, we know Neotel is here, and that those have been strategic deals that the two countries have been working together to make sure that together they can develop the ICT market together, they can develop other markets that are available for the two countries to explore. So maybe MTN and Bharti is one of those where the political cloud has to come in and say, how do we make sure that our two companies that are the jewel of each country, to make sure that this deal sort of makes everybody happy, both sides of the deal. The other challenge there is that we've got Vodacom, which was recently sold over to UK's Vodafone, and we know that the trade unions did not like it at the end. We know that ICASA was lambasted, saying that you came in late, in the late end of the talk, and also the problem is there was said rumors about things not being done correctly for the deal to go through between Vodacom and them, and people are worried about unemployment rates, and at the same time they've been worried about the current economic crisis and saying, what is this going to do to the South African employees, as well as the fact that now you're taking yet another strategic asset out of South Africa to the hands of international owners.
That's exactly the next point I was going to get to, because we've actually had this debate, you and I, before, about the fact that we're seeing our most established crown jewels that can actually make it globally being hived off every day. I mean, it's not just in the telecom space. We've got Anglo-American case in point, Old Mutual case in point as well. So what's your stance on that right now?
No, my view is I'm just happy that in the first set of MTN and Bharti deal. Bharti wanted to take over, and MTN said, I'm sorry, we actually want to work around with you. So in this case, my stance still is, I'm not looking to see another Ghana Telecom being taken by Vodafone or another mobile operator in South Africa taken up again by another big international player. I would rather see the South African asset companies coming in, building themselves and competing outside with the bigger ones and saying, we also can build this, because it's about time that Africa also has something to take to the table and say, we also have built these organizations to this level that we can challenge bigger market players that are out there. Because on the top 500 of Fortune, I would like to see South African run companies as well. Not every time to see the Europeans and Americans running the deal. So I would like to see South African ones going ahead strongly.
Let's get Lindsay's view on this, because at the same time, Lindsay, we should be looking at this from the point of view that any investment, local or foreign, makes sense when it allows the company to actually extract maximum opportunity, maximum potential. So in other words, would Anglo-American, for example, be as big as it is right now if it didn't take the route it did way back when?
Yeah, I think that's a very important point to talk about, because this is not a story of one company simply taking over one another. It's actually a story of synergies between the two companies. If you look at the nature of the deal, it's a very complicated deal. There's some share swapping, there's some equity, and then also there's a case of making use of the synergies that exist from a financial reporting point of view. So in terms of a very practical point of view, they're looking to see if they can streamline their internal processes and then also make use of the knowledge to which Nikki referred about MTN going into the African market and other emerging markets. It is an expert in this market, and Bharti's done well in the subcontinent. So I think when we talk in terms of IP and just the value that that's enhancing between the two companies, that's the most valuable. I also think it's important to note that MTN is of a culture that the management refused the Bharti deal last time because there was a danger that the management culture could be changed. And I think that is a central point of the company going forward. So I don't think we're going to see a situation where MTN would lose the character that it has now. I think the culture of the company is something that is a cornerstone to its success.
In terms of a sweetener, Lindsay, I mean, just how much more does Bharti need to add in your books before you see this deal getting government approval, getting minority share approval? We saw last week Reuters suggesting that Bharti had boosted their cash offer component by as much as a third.
I mean, it is speculation from our side. I think when it comes to the government approval, I simply don't see that there's any obstacle there. I think the Minister of Communications has made his stance clear. He's happy to see the company entering into these sort of deals as long as we see benefit for South Africa and that it does remain a South African-run company, which in the current stages of the negotiation it would. And then from the ICASA side, the regulator wants to make sure that all of the license requirements of MTN are met. So I don't think we're looking at it from that point of view. From a minorities shareholders perspective, I think that the sweetener that we've heard tell of certainly is a good one. But when we look at the rate of the rand to the dollar today, perhaps the dollar isn't worth as much as it used to be about 2 or 3 months ago. So who knows, you might have to see a couple more billion being thrown in there to really sweeten the deal for the minority shareholders.
And Nikki, I see you nodding there, so you're sharing that sentiment on that?
Exactly, because today the dollar is sitting at 7.31, and when the deal was started, the dollar I think was about 8. So right now the 10 billion looks a little less. I think the minorities might come in and say, you want to add a billion of you. You had your analyst earlier on in your insight saying that they looked at the asset MTN and they thought, you know what, we would rather have to pay. The current share price about 124. Many of them are looking at about 171. We'll see. Maybe there will be a more sweetener added into the deal.
Nikki.